Okay, so today I want to talk about something I've been thinking about very carefully for the past few weeks, and I want to be very honest with you. This is probably the most important lecture I have given since my 3 big predictions in 2024. Because here is the thing. Most people are watching this war between America and Iran, and they are asking the wrong questions. They are asking, who is winning today? What will Trump do next? Will there be a ceasefire? These are the wrong questions. They are like asking which card was just played while the whole game is already over. The right question is this: what is the end game? And more importantly, has the end game already started? And my answer today is yes. The end game has already started. And most people, most governments, most analysts, most ordinary citizens will only realize what has happened when it is far too late to do anything about it. Okay, so let me walk you through this carefully, because I want you to really understand what I am saying, not just on the surface. I want you to understand the deep structure of what is happening. And to do that, I need to start where I always start, with history. Let me ask you a simple question. When did the Roman Empire end? Most people will say 476 AD. That is when the last Western Roman emperor was deposed. But here's the thing. The Roman Empire did not end in 476 AD. It ended long before that. By the time 476 AD arrived, the empire had already been hollow for 100 years. The army was already made up mostly of Germanic mercenaries. The economy was already collapsing from currency debasement. The political system was already broken. They had something like 50 different emperors in one 50-year period. Most of them were assassinated. The city of Rome itself had already been sacked twice. 476 AD was not the end. It was just when ordinary people finally noticed. The end game had started 100 years earlier, and most Romans, going about their daily lives, paying their taxes, watching their chariot races, had absolutely no idea. This is the pattern. Empires do not collapse suddenly. They collapse slowly, then all at once. And the all at once part, that is what shocks people. But if you know how to read the signs, you can see the slow collapse happening long before the all at once arrives. And right now, today, in 2026, we are watching the slow collapse of the American empire become fast. The end game has started, and most people will only realize it when it is too late. Okay, so let me now explain specifically what I mean. I want to give you 5 clear signs that the end game has already started. 5 things that are happening right now that most people are not connecting together. But when you connect them, when you see them as one single pattern, the picture becomes very clear. The first sign is this: America went to war with Iran without a strategy, without a single clear answer to the most basic question in all of warfare. What does winning look like? Think about this. In Trump's State of the Union address, he said he would never allow Iran to develop a nuclear weapon. Both Democrats and Republicans stood up and cheered. It was one of the very few moments of unity in that entire speech, and it sounded very clear. We are going to war to stop Iran from getting a nuclear bomb. But here is what almost nobody reported. Just hours before the Americans and Israelis struck Tehran, the Omani foreign minister told the world that Iran had already agreed to zero uranium enrichment. Zero. Even for peaceful energy purposes. Even under surveillance. Iran had already agreed to exactly what America was demanding. So the nuclear pretext was already gone before the first bomb fell. Then they changed the story. Rubio said, we had to attack because Israel was going to attack first. And then Iran would retaliate against both Israel and America. So to protect ourselves, we had to preempt Israel and strike first. Think about what Rubio is actually saying here. He is saying America attacked a sovereign nation to prevent its own ally from attacking that same nation. America is fighting Iran to protect Iran from Israel, and also to protect America from Iran, retaliating against America for helping Israel attack Iran. It does not make sense, and Rubio knows it does not make sense, because it is not the real reason. Then they said, we are fighting for democracy in Iran. Then, we are fighting to control the oil. Then, Iran might take over the entire Middle East. Then, we had no choice. 5 different reasons in 5 days. This is not a government with a strategy. This is a government making up reasons as it goes. And this is the first sign of the end game. Because in every declining empire throughout history, the moment the empire can no longer articulate why it is fighting, that is the moment it has already lost. The British Empire could not explain why it was in India anymore by 1945. The Soviet Empire could not explain why it was in Afghanistan by 1985, and America cannot explain why it is in Iran today. The endgame has already started. The second sign is the economic trap. And this is the one I want you to pay the most attention to, because this is where the endgame will be felt most personally by ordinary people all over the world. Okay, let me explain something called the petrodollar system, because this is the engine of American power, and almost nobody understands how it actually works. In 1973, America made a deal with Saudi Arabia. The deal was simple. Saudi Arabia would sell its oil only in US dollars. And in exchange, America would protect the Saudi royal family and guarantee their survival. Because everyone in the world needs oil, and because oil can only be bought in dollars, everyone in the world needs dollars. This created permanent global demand for the US dollar. This allowed America to print money, run enormous debts, and finance its empire. Because no matter how many dollars America printed, the world needed them. This is how America has $40 trillion in debt and has not collapsed. This is the Ponzi scheme that keeps the American economy alive. Now here is what is happening right now. The Strait of Hormuz, which Iran is controlling, carries 20% of the world's entire oil supply. Japan gets 75% of its oil through the Strait of Hormuz. Japan's prime minister has already told his cabinet, if this continues for 7 or 8 months, Japan will run out of oil. Japan, a manufacturing powerhouse, out of oil. Pakistan, India, China, South Korea. All of their oil comes through the Strait of Hormuz. When this strait is closed, their economies slow down. And when Asian economies slow down, the entire global supply chain breaks. But there is more, because the Strait of Hormuz does not just carry oil out of the Gulf, it carries food in. The Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, they import 80 to 90% of their food through the Strait of Hormuz. Dubai could run out of food in a week, not months, a week. And then there is water. The Gulf states get 60% of their fresh water from desalination plants. These plants take seawater and make it drinkable. If those plants are damaged or destroyed, cities of millions of people run out of water in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Now think about what this means for the petrodollar system. The Gulf states sell their oil, get dollars, and then, and this is the key part most people do not know, they recycle those dollars back into the American economy. They invest in American AI companies, American data centers, American real estate, American stocks. This is what keeps the American financial system alive. This is what inflates the AI bubble that everyone thinks makes America rich. If the Gulf states stop selling oil because the Strait of Hormuz is closed, they stop getting dollars. If they stop getting dollars, they stop investing in America. If they stop investing in America, the AI bubble bursts. If the AI bubble bursts, the American economy suffers a depression worse than the 1930s. That is how fragile the system is. And here is the most important point. Iran closing the Strait of Hormuz is not just a military move. It is a surgical strike on the central nervous system of the entire American empire. The Iranians understand this perfectly. The Americans are only now beginning to realize it. Oil was at $60 a barrel before this war. It is now approaching $120. If it reaches $150, $200, and there are serious analysts who believe it will, that is not just expensive gasoline. That is global recession. That is food prices doubling. That is ordinary people in America, in Europe, in Asia feeling the consequences of this war in their grocery bills and their heating costs and their jobs. And when ordinary people feel it, that is when the political collapse of support for this war becomes unstoppable. The economic endgame has already started. Most people will only realize it when they see the prices. The third sign is what I call the mirage problem. And to explain this, I want to talk about Dubai. Dubai is one of the most extraordinary cities ever built. 50 years ago, it was a small fishing village in the middle of a desert. Today, it has skyscrapers, luxury hotels, Michelin-starred restaurants, and some of the most expensive real estate in the world. Thousands of extremely wealthy people from around the world moved their money to Dubai because it was safe, it was comfortable, and it was not taxed. But Dubai is a mirage. It was built on two things: oil money and Pax Americana's guarantee of security. Remove either one of those and the mirage disappears. Both are being removed right now. Millionaires are already fleeing Dubai. The money is going to Singapore, to Southeast Asia, to anywhere that is not the Middle East. This is not rumor. This is happening. And once that wealth leaves, it does not come back. Because wealth does not return to places where the illusion of safety has been broken. Once the illusion is gone, it is gone forever. And this matters enormously for the endgame because the Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, these are the financial backbone of the petrodollar system. These are the countries that recycle oil money back into American power. If those countries destabilize, and they are destabilizing right now, then the financial architecture of American global power destabilizes with them. This is the mirage problem. The Gulf was always a mirage. It was always a construction of Pax Americana. And now that Pax Americana is failing to protect it, the mirage is dissolving. And once it dissolves, the entire Western financial system built on top of it begins to shake. The fourth sign is what I call the pattern of imperial decline. And this is perhaps the most important thing I can teach you today, because once you see this pattern, you will see it everywhere. When empires are strong, they are strategic. They calculate, they plan, they ask, is this worth the cost? Is this achievable? What is the exit? But when empires are declining, they become irrational. They become emotional. They stop asking whether something is achievable and start asking whether something makes them feel powerful. They attack not because they expect to win, but because they cannot bear the feeling of weakness. They prefer destruction to surrender. They would rather burn the house down than admit they cannot afford to live in it. We can see this pattern in every declining empire in history. The Athenians in the Sicilian expedition, 415 BC. Athens was already weakening from the long war with Sparta. Did they attack Sicily because they had a clear strategy? No. They attacked because a small group of ambitious politicians convinced the Athenian people that Sicily would be easy, that the victory would restore Athenian greatness, that the glory was worth the risk. The Athenians sent 200 ships and 40,000 soldiers. Almost none of them came home. The expedition destroyed Athens, not Sparta. Athens destroyed itself through its own hubris. And America, right now, is doing the same thing. Look at what Trump has done just in the past 2 years. He kidnapped the president of Venezuela against international law. He deployed the Navy in the Caribbean to bomb drug boats against international law. He threatened to annex Greenland. He threatened to invade Canada. He threatened to attack Mexico. And now he is embargoing Cuba. And people are starving in Cuba right now because Cuba was dependent on Venezuelan oil. And when Venezuela fell to American pressure, the oil stopped. These are not the actions of a confident, strategic empire. These are the actions of a bully who is losing his power and is lashing out at everyone around him to hide his weakness. And Iran is just the most dangerous iteration of this pattern. America went in thinking, as they always do, that the shock and awe of American air power would be enough, that the Iranian government would collapse, that the Iranian people would welcome American bombs, that the whole thing would be over in days. They did not expect Iran to fight back. They did not expect the Iranians to close the Strait of Hormuz. They did not expect Iranian missiles to hit American bases across the entire Gulf region. They did not expect the Iranian people to come out into the streets in the millions, not in fear, but in defiance. This is hubris. And hubris, as history has shown us over and over again, always ends the same way. Now, here is what I want you to understand about the specific economic dimensions of American decline. Because the military failure is visible, everyone can see it. But the economic failure is quieter, and it is in many ways more devastating. America has deindustrialized. Over the past 40 years, America moved all of its manufacturing to China. And for a long time, this seemed smart. Americans got cheap consumer goods. American financial companies made enormous profits managing the global supply chains. American tech companies built their products in Chinese factories. It seemed like a win. But what America lost was its capacity to make things. And when you fight a war, a real war, not a quick bombing campaign, but a sustained war of attrition, what you need is not financial services. What you need is factories. You need to be able to make interceptor missiles faster than the enemy can fire drones. You need to be able to replace fighter jets. You need to be able to manufacture artillery shells. And America cannot do this. America is now trying to remilitarize, trying to rebuild the industrial base it destroyed over 40 years. But you cannot rebuild 40 years of manufacturing capacity in a year, or 5 years, or possibly even 10 years. China, on the other other hand, has the largest manufacturing base in human history. And China is not in this war. China is watching. China is buying Iranian oil at discounted prices. China is strengthening its supply chains. China is building its industrial capacity while America burns through its weapons stockpiles in Iran. This is the slow, fast collapse pattern again. America has been deindustrializing slowly for 40 years. The consequences are now arriving all at once in the middle of a war that requires exactly the industrial capacity America no longer has. The fifth and final sign is the most important, and it is the one that tells me the endgame has not just started, it is already in its final chapters. It is this: America can no longer explain itself to the world. In every previous war America fought, there was a narrative. World War II, we are fighting fascism and saving democracy. Korea, we are stopping communist expansion. Vietnam, same narrative even if it was wrong. The Gulf War, we are protecting a small country from a brutal dictator. Iraq 2003, we are destroying weapons of mass destruction and spreading freedom. These narratives were not always true, but they were narratives. They gave the world a framework for understanding what America was doing and why. In Iran, there is no coherent narrative. There were 5 different reasons in 5 days, and the world noticed. And not just enemies of America. Allies of America noticed. The Spanish Prime Minister has said clearly this war is wrong. The President of Germany has said this is a terrible blunder. Even within NATO, there is no unity behind this war. The Global South, Africa, Latin America, Southeast Asia, is almost universally opposed. And here is what this means strategically. The narrative dimension of war is not just about public relations. It is about power. When America can tell a story that the world believes, the world cooperates with American power. Countries allow American bases. Companies accept American financial sanctions. Allies provide political support. The narrative is what makes American power feel legitimate rather than just brutal. When the narrative collapses, when America cannot explain itself, that legitimacy collapses with it. And legitimacy, once lost, is almost impossible to recover. We are seeing this happen right now. Countries that were previously careful to stay neutral are now openly criticizing America. Financial institutions that were previously unquestioning are now questioning whether the dollar is safe. Nations that previously accepted American military bases are now asking, wait, these bases are bringing war to our doorstep, not peace. Why are they still here? This is how empires end, not with a single decisive defeat, but with a slow, spreading loss of legitimacy that eventually makes every aspect of imperial power impossible to sustain. Okay? So let me now put all 5 signs together and show you what the endgame actually looks like. Because this is what I want you to understand. This is what most people will only see when it is too late. The endgame is this: America will not be defeated in a single dramatic battle. America will not sign a formal surrender document. America will not be conquered. What will happen is that the cost of maintaining the American empire in money, in soldiers, in political will, in global legitimacy will become unsustainable all at the same time. The petrodollar system will be weakened. The Gulf states will partially destabilize. Asian economies will diversify away from dollar dependence because they cannot afford to have their oil supply controlled by American military decisions. The AI financial bubble that was propped up by Gulf state investment will come under serious pressure. The American national debt, $40 trillion already, will become harder and harder to service. Congress will fight about funding the war. The draft, if it comes, will produce the most serious political crisis in America since Vietnam. Young Americans who are already refusing to have children, already refusing to invest in the future, already gambling away their savings on crypto, those young Americans are not going to war for a cause they do not understand. And at a certain point, not one dramatic moment, but a gradual accumulation of unsustainable pressures, the American military will begin to withdraw from the Middle East. Not because Iran defeated it on the battlefield, but because the cost of staying became higher than the cost of leaving. And when that withdrawal happens, 2 regional powers will remain in the Middle East, Iran and Israel. They will be the strongest forces in the region. The Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, will become clients of whichever of these 2 powers they decide to align with. Some will choose Iran, some will choose Israel, but none of them will choose America, because America will have proven that it cannot protect them. And what does a Middle East without American power look like? Iran controls the Strait of Hormuz and collects tolls from the world's shipping. The Belt and Road Initiative, China's massive infrastructure project, runs straight through Iran, connecting Asia to Europe. The North-South corridor, connecting Russia to India, also runs through Iran. Iran becomes the geographic center of the new global trade network. Not America, not the petrodollar, Iran. This is Iran's endgame, and it has already started. Now, I want to say something that I think is very important, something that I want you to sit with. The question most people are asking right now is, can America win this war? Can America destroy Iran's military capability? Can America force regime change? And the honest answer is, probably not. But that is the wrong question, because even if America could do these things, the deeper collapse has already been set in motion. The petrodollar system has already been weakened by this war. The Gulf states have already been shown to be vulnerable. Asian economies have already begun quietly diversifying away from dollar dependence. The American political system has already shown it cannot produce a coherent strategy. American manufacturing capacity has already been proven insufficient for sustained warfare. American global legitimacy has already been damaged in ways that will take decades to repair, if they can be repaired at all. These are not things that a ceasefire will fix. These are not things that a peace deal will fix. The endgame is not about this specific war. The endgame is about the entire structure of American global power, the empire, the finance, the petrodollar, the legitimacy, all of it coming apart at the same time. The Romans did not notice their empire was ending in 376 AD. They were too busy watching the chariot races, and then the Visigoths crossed the Danube and everything changed faster than anyone expected. What is our Danube crossing? I think it is already happening. It is the Strait of Hormuz. It is the desalination plants. It is the millionaires leaving Dubai. It is Japan running out of oil. It is the American government unable to explain to its own people why this war is happening. The endgame has already started. Most people will only realize it when it is too late, okay? So what does this mean for you? What does this mean for ordinary people watching this war unfold? It means this: the world you grew up in, a world where American power was the organizing principle of global trade, global finance, global security. That world is ending. It is not ending next year. Parts of it will last for many more years. Empires are large and they die slowly, even when they die fast. But the direction of travel is now clear, and the speed is accelerating. What comes after? I believe, and I have argued this before, that we are moving toward a multipolar world, a world with multiple centers of power. America will remain a great power. It will not disappear, but it will no longer be the single organizing empire that it has been since 1945. Iran will be a regional power controlling the Persian Gulf and the trade routes that run through it. Israel will be a regional power in the Eastern Mediterranean. China will be the dominant economic power in Asia. Russia will control the energy and food supplies of Eurasia. India will be the great swing power, the nation that everyone wants as an ally. This is the new world. And whether you think this is good or bad, whether you are frightened by it or excited by it, it does not matter, because it is happening. The end game has already started. What I want you to take away from today is not fear. Fear is not useful. What I want you to take away is understanding, because understanding is the only tool that allows you to navigate change rather than be swept away by it. History does not stop. Empires rise and fall. The question is never whether change will come. The question is only whether you will see it coming in time to respond intelligently. You are watching it happen right now, in real time, right now. The end game has already started. Okay, so that is my analysis for today. This is not prophecy. This is structural history and game theory applied to the evidence in front of us. Question everything I have said. Look at the evidence yourself. Think critically. That is what predictive history is about.